Would be some career advice you'd give a young professional? And young professional, let's be really clear, doesn't necessarily mean your age. Okay, age is just a number, but young to the young professional, again, as it denotes in the name, is a young professional in this. What would you give them advice? What would your advice be?
I think my favorite piece of advice that I love to give my mentees and younger people is that you belong in every room.
Oh, wow.
You belong in every single room. You belong at every single table. You belong there,
Fantastic.
right? And so
This episode is brought to you by CSG. CSG's SaaS solutions optimize every step of the tolling journey, from billing and payments to customer engagement, helping agencies maximize revenue through smarter, more integrated experiences. Make more, save more, and do more. Visit csgi.com. Welcome to Toll Talk, the podcast dedicated to the tolling industry and providing professionals like you with the insights you need on what's happening in the tolling and transportation industry. This show will bring you interviews with great leaders, innovators, and people who help shape our insight, policies, and technologies that are evolving the transportation landscape. So thank you for tuning in, and let's jump into this next episode. Today's show, I'm really excited to have one of our particular guests on. Her name is Joi Taylor Dean. She has multiple roles, but we're going to be talking about two in particular. She is the CEO of the Regional Metropolitan Transportation Authority, commonly known as RMTA, down in Virginia, but she is also the current president of IBTTA. And so, Joi, I'm thankful that you're able to join us. I know you have a lot going on, so welcome to the show.
thanks, Alex. And it's actually the Richmond Metropolitan Transportation Authority.
Yes.
And a hustling, bustling metropolis of Richmond, Virginia.
That's awesome. Well, it's definitely probably something that keeps a lot of your time. But before we dig in, Joi, we have so many people that watch the show, and we, as we said, kind of like in our intro, we're bringing so many different people together. But I think it's really important for people to know who you are, right, and kind of maybe exactly where your career started, because I know it's an interesting journey. It's probably not when you started out to say I'm going to end up in tolling and transportation. So why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I did a talk a couple of weeks ago where we talked about the roadmap, right?
Mm,
And how kind of in your career, oftentimes the road is windy, right? It's not a straight line. And so and I am a product of that windy road. And I started I am originally from Miami, Florida. I like to say that because who doesn't like Miami, right?
exactly.
And I went to school up here in Virginia at Hampton University first and then William and Mary Law School. And after law school, I thought, what am I going to do now? Right. Like the thought was like, I'm going to go. I initially thought I wanted to be a prosecutor.
Okay.
Uh, and and so I had the opportunity to go work and clerk for a judge up in New Jersey. And so I went up there, I clerked for the criminal judge there, the presiding judge for the criminal division. And it was great. And I thought, this is great. I'm going to be this great prosecutor. And every year, the prosecutor's office offered the presiding judge's law clerk a position.
Okay.
Well, this particular year, they decided they weren't going to do that. So this path that I thought I was going to take totally, went in a different direction. And I ended up after doing that, ended up working one of the gubernatorial campaigns. And on the campaign, I met a woman who would then become, after the election, become the president of the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities. Not something that I would have ever imagined that I'd be interested in
Right.
or even knew about. And so she asked me to come work for her as her and one of her attorneys. And she said to me, it's this really great, it's really interesting, and you're gonna love it. And I started my career here, and I thought, utilities, I'm not really sure about this, but
Right.
I did it. I went and I worked, and I worked in the regulatory space there, and then got an opportunity to go work for the Attorney General's office, where I worked for the actual Attorney General of New Jersey as his special assistant. which really allowed for me to travel the state, to work with legislators, to work with prosecutors' offices, right?
Okay,
The one
sure.
thing that I wanted to be, right? But was actually because our office was over all the prosecutors' offices. So
Right.
got the opportunity to work with them on different gang prevention initiatives and do a lot of interesting things there. And then went to work in the consumer fraud division as well as the affirmative litigation section.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, as the story goes, I got married and I moved to Virginia. And when I got here, I thought, I was gonna live the dream of a housewife. And my husband kept saying, what do you plan to do? Like, what is your what do you want to do? And I had this a small public affairs firm that I had started in New Jersey, and so we did a lot of political campaigns and strategic positioning.
Okay.
And I said, well, maybe I could do a little bit of that down here. And so we started this company, the Dean Strategy Group. And at the time, one of our friends was the chair of the board of the RMTA. And he
Oh,
said,
okay.
there might be some work over there for you. I know you're really good at relationship building. And I said, well, I'm not really from here. I don't really know everybody, but I can do it. It's fine. And so
Right.
I started at the RMTA actually as a consultant. And I got to know the CEO at the time, and she hired me full time as the chief of staff. And within I think it was about 3 years, 4 years in 2017, she left to take another job
Okay.
in Washington, and that's when I was elevated to CEO. And so it really kind of was a circuitous path to tolling, but it's been a fun ride thus far.
That's awesome. It's I when I grew up, I wanted to be an MTV music director, and I thought I was going to make the greatest videos and maybe be a host. And who knew? But now I guess the closest I came is we do videography, do stuff on the day job of Mojo, so to speak. But now I'm a a show host in one sense or another, but wasn't quite there. But it's funny. I say that in jest, but it's funny how the careers and the paths that life lead us. And find us where we're at today. It's pretty inspirational. So that sounds like a great origin story, if you will. So fantastic. Now, would you mind telling us a little bit now that we understand your role as CEO of the RMTA, how that maybe how you balance that out, because you're wearing two hats and you're also the president of IBTTA currently. How did that come to fruition?
Yeah, so I actually joined IBTTA, and I went to my first conference, I can say, in 2018, because I
Okay.
still have the little giveaway from Baltimore in 2018 that they gave us. And I was looking at it the other day and I thought, wow, that seems like it was so long ago. This time is really flying. And it was there. I had really just started in my role.
Mm-hmm.
And the beauty of IBTTA is that, everybody is in the same location at one time,
Yes.
right? And for me, it was a really great opportunity, one, to just meet my peers in the industry,
Yeah.
and to learn from them, and really just to be able to network, and I remember I went to the CEO summit that year,
Mm.
and everyone in the room said, hey, if you need anything, this is, call me. And, people say that all the time,
Yeah.
right? People say that, and you're thinking, okay, sure, I'm going to call you. And I did
Yeah.
it. Like I picked
Good.
up the
Good.
phone and I called a few folks and they answered my questions. And, coming from the legal side of,
Yeah.
where sometimes, people might answer your call or sometimes they might not. It was refreshing, right?
Right.
And so, that was really kind of my beginning of IBTTA, and really understanding the magic of IBTTA, right?
Yeah.
And that magic is that, everyone is super congenial.
Mm-hmm.
We know each other. We see each other, and we see each other what, 3, 4 times a year,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
And we stay connected even when we're not together,
Yeah.
right? And so that's what I love about IBTTA. It's the relationships, it's the networking. But that was from 2018, and then Chris Tomlinson,
Oh yeah.
asked me if I would serve, and so I served as co-chair of government affairs with the Mark Compton as the other co-chair. Right. And
Yep.
so, I mean,
Yep.
so I'm surrounded by all these great people,
Oh
right?
yeah.
I've got Chris Tomlinson, I've got, Mark Compton, and then Samuel Johnson asked me to serve. And then I served on the board. And so all of these things were happening.
Right.
And I thought, this is really an amazing organization. And I want to be even
Yeah.
more a part of it. And, when I thought about the idea of running for second vice president,
Right.
every time I join an organization, I think about, this is a great organization, right? This is a great association. Uh,
Right.
but how can we take it to the next level?
Right.
And anything that I ever do, I'm always that's always at the forefront of my mind. And
Sure.
so I'm really excited to be IBTTA president and just work with everyone to kind of take things to the next level.
Well, no, thank you for that. And it is that personal connection, those personal connections you establish. I joined around the same time. I was in Anaheim, California, shortly thereafter Baltimore, which of course I joined. Being based in here in Baltimore, I missed that opportunity. But I did join in Anaheim, and I've seen the same thing. It's amazing the relationships that are waiting to be fostered that are there, and they're so genuine too. It's been very rewarding from that side. So I guess, would you say that's what really keeps you passionate? Because there's so many organizations or things that you're a part of in a daily environment. But to me, I'm really curious your opinion on this, is that when you are in this particular industry and you look at IBTTA and you look at transportation as a whole in our daily activities, I've never seen an association or a group so closely aligned with our day-to-day activities. So to me, it's easy to stay passionate about it. What are your thoughts on that? And is there a particular vision that drives you with all of this?
Yeah, and before you asked about kind of IBTTA presidency
Yeah.
and RMTA CEO, right? And I think the beauty of both of those is that I have the opportunity to learn something new almost every day,
Right.
right? I don't purport to be an expert in tolling.
Right. Right.
I am nowhere near an expert in tolling, but what I do know that I'm an expert in is learning information very quickly
There you go.
and being able to communicate it in an effective manner, right?
Yeah.
And those are two skills that I have to utilize on a daily basis, whether it's whether it's as IBTTA president or as the RMTA CEO.
Yeah.
And so that's what kind of makes me like really passionate about the industry, because there's, to me, I'm always learning something new.
Yeah.
I haven't been in the industry for 15, 20 years, like a lot of my
Right.
peers, right?
Absolutely.
Which is an amazing story,
Yeah.
right, for people. And so for me, I am constantly learning and I love to learn. And so it's really important to me that I learn a lot when I
Right.
go to IBTTA conferences. I learn a lot from just talking to my peers. And what I've been able to do is share that with my board,
Right.
because you're gone, you're
Yeah.
saying, oh, I'm going to IBTTA. They're like, well, what is this? Right. That we're committed to you doing this, but what is it?
Yeah.
But what I've been able to share with them um, at lots of different levels, right? I can share with them, we just put in all electronic tolling in our system. I can say to them, this is what my peers have done,
Sure.
and this is where we are within the industry in accomplishing this, right?
Yeah.
I can say to them, you know, I I may not have the answer for you, but I can call somebody and get that
Right.
answer.
Yeah. You have a
And
healthy
so,
network of, like you said, experts, true experts that to lean
absolutely.
into.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. So let me, let's talk a little bit about the vision and strategy. I want to talk about IBTTA for a minute. So every year, I think, we ask presidents to have a mission and a goal and a vision. And I'm kind of curious, as you've taken all this inspiration and your legal experience, and then your time, obviously working in infrastructure, really, kind of what's your vision and theme for the presidential position you're holding in 2026?
So yeah, so my theme is driving what's next, and there are three pillars of that: investment, impact, and influence. And
Investment, impact,
so
and influence. Make sure you note that down. Yeah, go ahead.
investment, impact, influence
Love it. All right.
is the three pillars. And what's when I think about investment, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking of and I'm speaking of investing in our industry,
Okay.
in investing in people,
Okay.
right? Whether you're a new professional, new to the industry, you're mid-career,
Mm-hmm.
or you're even kind of a seasoned professional. Like we all have a desire to do better, right? Like
Right.
we all have a desire to learn. We all have a desire from a professional leadership perspective um, to get things right,
Right.
right?
And
And what I hope to accomplish with the investment pillar is really investing in our membership.
okay.
And so what we'll be rolling out very soon is a leadership webinar series.
Okay, great.
Uh, and so you'll hear more about that soon.
Good.
And then the other component to that is that we are putting together a framework for a mentorship program.
Okay, excellent.
And so this is something that I've heard from a lot of folks that they're interested in. And so those are kind of two key areas with regard to investment.
Okay.
Impact, right? How are we impacting the industry? How are we impacting transportation as a whole, right?
Okay.
Mobility. And so it's uh it's it's improving upon our programming, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that we can kind of be leaders on the technology side. And it's how we impact the overall global mobility experience, right?
Okay, love it. Global mobility. We're not just
Global,
talking, yeah, there
global
you go.
mobility.
Yeah.
And then lastly, influence, you know, how are we advocating for our industry? How are we influencing the
Right.
transportation industry?
Right.
And we hope to do that, not just continuing to be up in Washington and advocating on behalf of our members,
Sure.
but also advocating at the state level because we all
Okay.
know that that's where we have our greatest challenges,
Yes.
right?
Typically.
But
Absolutely.
also creating partnerships and collaborations with others in the industry, like ASHTO. We have an MOU with ASHTO. How can we enhance our relationship with them? We have an MOU with COMTO. How can we continue to enhance that relationship? We hope to sign an MOU with WTS. That's in the works. We have, of course, our longstanding relationship with ASICAP.
Yep.
And so looking at the MOUs that we have and looking at the relationships that we have and some new relationships in order to enhance our influence in the transportation space.
Yeah. Well, if I just can comment on a couple things there, the investment in people and the members, I think is very important because I think it's always been a drive when you think of workforce development kind of concepts. We have to prepare the next generation. And I think at the IBTTA has always done a great job of making sure that's a thought process. But what I was wondering, when you think about investments in members, what could you maybe give me a specific example as to what that investment might look like without giving away too much of the announcements of the program or anything like that? But what might it look like for a member? Because we have IBTTA coming up, the technical summit, and I'm not sure when you're re-rolling this stuff out here, but if people wanted to know how this applies to them, right, or what opportunities there are, could you maybe give one example as when you're talking about investing in the people?
Yeah, and so I think the mentorship program is a
Mm-hmm.
really good
Okay, great.
example of that. I've taken the time to actually sit down with the Young Professionals
Mm-hmm.
Council, um, and because I understand that it's really important for our industry.
Yeah.
I think I'm still young. I feel like I'm young at heart.
We are. Let's put that out there. We are young at heart.
I,
Yeah.
I still feel young sometimes, right? But I know that I'm not, right? And
I
and
won't
I
say
think
that. I think we're aged to perfection. I think that's what we'll go with.
I'm that Gen X,
Yeah, yeah.
age to perfection. And so, I think it's really important that
Yeah.
we talk that, we hear the voices
Yeah.
of the younger people in our industry, right? And so, I sat down with the YPC in Denver, and
Okay.
I said, I'm really interested in what you all would like what are you interested in?
Right.
How can we better serve kind of your needs here?
Right.
And they said a couple of things, but my key takeaways were, they really wanted mentorship.
Mm. Okay.
And so, that's something that I'm working on. And,
Great.
what I've said to the platinum sponsors is, okay, we have, the YPC says they want some mentorship.
Right.
Can you help with this being mentors,
Yeah.
right? We're going to need mentors uh, that are actively engaged,
Yes. Yep. That's
actively
key. Key
participate,
phrase. Key phrase.
uh,
Actively engaged. Love it.
actively engaged, because this only works, right?
Right.
If both sides are actively engaged, and so, like I said, we're still working on the framework of that, but that's just one key component to investing in people.
Okay. Great. Thank you for drilling down into that a little bit. So, how do you see IBTT's role evolving in the tolling that moves beyond the traditional sectors, right? We're talking about mobility. I mean, we're talking about people, infrastructure, impacted influence. I'm sorry, investment impacted influence as part of your three pillars. But how does that translate into moving beyond into the mobility and the infrastructure ecosystems? How does everything you do benefit that?
I think that we've already proven
Hmm.
that we can move people safely,
Right.
right? We can move people efficiently. Um, we can, build infrastructure in the most cost-effective way, right? And and I think we're good at that,
Right.
right?
Okay.
We are very good at what we do. And so, but I also think we also have to be open to listening to other people
Right.
in the transportation space.
Okay.
You know, I sat in on a session here in Virginia maybe 6 months ago where they were talking about air mobility.
Okay.
And I was talking to my daughter yesterday because I was reading an article where they were talking about they're going to have these drones that are that people can ride in,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Got approval for in New York, right? For a test pilot, a pilot in New York.
Right.
And I was talking to my daughter, and I'm like, oh, this is so cool. And I said, I was talking to her about the Jetsons. And she says, the Jetsons? And I said, you never heard the Jetsons, have you? And she says, no. So we go to YouTube and we pull it up. And we're looking at the intro to the
Yeah.
Jetsons. And I said, now think about this. This was many years ago. I said, but now, right now, you can get in
Yep.
what George Jetson was flying in, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's
get to the
fantastic.
airport from Manhattan, right? In no time.
Yeah.
And so, but are we talking about this in our space?
Yeah. No,
We should
we
be,
should be.
right?
Absolutely.
Because, you know, and I think James had talked about this. James Hoffman had talked about
Yeah.
this some years ago. But we're gonna have these drones. They're gonna be flying over our highways
Yeah.
theoretically. What does that mean for us?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So like these are conversations that we need to be having. And I think we're open to them,
Okay.
right? And so it's just a matter of us kind of thinking outside of the box
Yeah.
because we're good at what we do.
Sure.
But
Sure.
on the flip side of that, right, we met with the USDOT last year and they said that they want to build highways, right? Well, we're good at that too,
Yeah. Sure.
right? And so we stress to them, this is what we do. We
Right.
do it in a safe and cost-effective way.
Yeah.
And so, I think the tolling industry, it's the future is bright,
Right.
and I think we have there's a lot of opportunity out there for us. I think we just have to be able to broaden our scope a little bit.
Yeah.
Now a message from our sponsor.
The business of tolling is complex. Trusted by the world's most respected brands, CSG transforms every customer interaction, communications, billing, payments, and more into a smarter, more profitable outcome. Make more, save more, do more. CSG, solving tolling's toughest challenges simply.
Well, and it all comes down to innovation and leadership. And so I'm kind of curious, what challenges and opportunities do you see that are most shaping your vision for the industry when it comes to as someone who's traditionally come from a legal and policy background? Maybe you can comment on those challenges and opportunities you see in front of you.
Well, I think kind of the challenges and the opportunities are one and the same, right?
Yeah.
Like the challenge is to effectively communicate what we do,
Right.
right?
To
broader audiences,
right.
right?
Absolutely.
To effectively, I'd say continue to gain the trust
Yeah.
of our customers, right? Because trust is important.
Yes.
Transparency is important, right?
Yeah.
So these are great opportunities for us, but they're also significant challenges,
Yeah.
right? When we talk about trust and transparency, I think about the upcoming RUC conference.
Oh yeah.
And I think there's been conversation. I told you I started in 18, and every conference I've gone to, we've talked about RUC, right?
Right.
And I laugh because we're in the industry. I understand RUC, right? And we have a pilot here. We have a VMT pilot here in Virginia, and so I went to go plug in for my registration.
Right.
And I said, oh, you know what? I might want to do this VMT pilot. Because I understand it.
Yeah.
I plug everything in, and I get to the place on the system where it asks for full access to the technology in my vehicle.
Oh boy, yeah. Yeah.
And that's when I paused and I thought,
Sure.
well, who am I giving this information to, and why do they need it?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I'm not your average everyday person, right?
Right.
I
Yeah.
understand it.
Yeah.
And so that was the first thing. The second thing was, well, how much is this going to cost me? Is this a cost savings for me?
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't. It wasn't a significant cost savings for me. And so you want to have full access to all of my information, and it's not going to be a cost savings to me.
Yeah.
Right? And so, but those are the two areas I talked about, right? Trust
Yeah.
and transparency.
Yeah.
And so I think there's the challenge is that we have to be able to communicate effectively.
Right.
And the benefits of all of what we do in the tolling industry.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge, but it's also a great opportunity for us.
It reminds me of this challenge and opportunity that you're talking about. This trust reminds me of a quote I use very often. It's Maya Angelou once said, "People will never remember what you said. They won't remember what you did, but they always remember how you made them feel." And yes. I think, in my day job at Mojo, we pursue that. But that whole customer journey that you're commenting on is, has negative influences outside of you, whether, your organization, whether it be the IBTTA or the RMTA or where you're at, people are getting their influences everywhere. And so now having to face those and see the opportunities in front of us to get customers to feel confident, right? To build that trust layer with them. I can see the challenge. It's also kind of exciting because I think if ever we've had the technology now to do something about it, it's just a matter of, is it incentivizing enough? Is the juice worth the squeeze of, signing your car up and dumping all your data out there? So it's refreshing from my standpoint to hear that you're out there, you're experiencing that yourself and saying, well, I don't know if this is going to be the net result we're looking for. So,
and I'm experiencing those people. I'm experiencing all of my alleged friends and whether it's at an event or on my friend group chat, asking me about an easy pass and why they need an easy pass and why do people need to have this so people are following them and knowing where they're going. And they're like, you do have a phone, right? Like you have a phone, you're on
Yeah.
TikTok, right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
you're worried about an easy pass, right?
Yeah.
And so, and these are fairly intelligent people, right? And so it's a challenge, right?
Yeah.
This is the challenge that we face in the industry. And I think, every day, every month, every year, we're getting better
Yeah.
communicating with our customers and with our friends and our family and everyone in our communities. But I think it just has to be consistent,
Yes.
consistent communication and
And frequent.
and
Which is,
frequent.
frequency and consistency, right? That's it. Yeah. Absolutely. I don't know about you, but I always get, if somebody asks me what I do, or if I try to give them an example, I say, well, we designed this or that, and I mention Easy Pass or, and the first thing I'm like, oh, well, I hope you're doing something about this, right? It's always some pain point that they have. But when I tell them, the positive things and what's happening, they're like, oh, this is really good. So I loved what you were saying about letting the people know what, they getting better about communicating what's out there for them and the impact it can have in their lives, because I think people want to hear it. But, if we can change the way they think about it, it's fantastic. So
Absolutely.
that's great. So, earlier with your pillars, and I love those because I use pillars in my day to day that I lean on and build my foundation on. But would you be fair to say that when you picked those three pillars, could you maybe say or comment, did you think they helped influence the idea and focus on workforce development, for this upcoming year? I mean, it sounds like you're talking about creating a dependable infrastructure. Does that line up? Is it run parallel with that initiative, or can maybe talk about workforce development and IBTTA in 2026?
Yeah, I think for me, workforce development was the overarching theme.
Sure.
When I started thinking about, what do I hope to accomplish?
Mm,
What can we do um, to move the industry forward,
right.
right? And everywhere I go, people are talking about workforce, right? And workforce, and I feel it. I'm looking for a director of finance, and at one time I was looking for a director of operations.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
No.
It's not easy to find people, and so and it's not easy to find people who are necessarily interested in tolling,
Right. Right.
right? It's not always easy to find individuals who even know anything about tolling,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
And so we have really kind of in IBTTA, we have kind of a unique kind of niche group,
Yeah.
right? And so the question is, how do we attract others to this industry, and how do we retain
Yeah.
those individuals who we have in this industry? And so that is kind of what I was thinking about as I looked at kind of putting together these three pillars.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of conversations with people
That's great.
because I like to talk to people. I like to listen to what they have to say.
Mm-hmm.
And I also recognize, I was student government president when I was in my undergraduate. And I also recognize that just because you were president at that particular moment doesn't mean that you will see what you want to happen come to fruition at that particular, right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's about laying the groundwork
Right.
for something to happen, right?
Right.
And so like for me, as I think about workforce, I think about those individuals in the YPC, or there's individuals who are coming through Leadership Academy
Yeah.
who are really excited about this industry. And how do we continue to keep them excited about this industry?
Yeah.
How do we talk to, how do I talk to my peers in the public sector and say, hey, why can't some younger people come to the conference?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're
Absolutely.
platinum sponsors. Why can't we have some younger people come to the conference? And so everyone says, we want workforce development, but how do we get there?
Yeah.
Right? Because, the conferences are expensive.
Oh yeah,
Right?
sure.
And so how do we get there? How do we allow for individuals who have not attended before be able to attend?
Yeah.
And
That's
I think that's a challenge, right?
sure.
Which is one of the reasons why, we're doing we're going to do this leadership development kind of webinar series, right?
Okay,
So
great.
that you don't have to uh, spend this money. You can sit in your house and you can listen.
Yeah.
And that's why what you all do is so great,
Oh,
because
thank
people
you.
can learn.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of, that's our mission. We want to, when we started this show, and I'll just say briefly, the pain point we thought we could fill was that you see a group of people talking across the room, right? And you're like, oh, I want to be in that conversation. I wonder what they're talking about, or I'd love to understand more. But the nature of any group that you're new to, it's that intimidation, it's the fear factor, it's all those conditions that make us human. How do you break into that area? And I thought this was, as Kayla and I have developed this, I thought this was a great medium for it. But to your point is it's definitely helped educate us and the people we have on the show. But what I love what you're talking about here is, the idea of mentorship and bringing people in. I think it's so important that they realize that when you think about this career, it's tolling, certainly that's the industry we serve, but really it's another level of problem solving, right? It's dealing with, humans and, helping people create jobs, by giving them transportation means, by opening up roadways and technologies to make their lives easier. And so I think, from a marketing hat I put on, I think it's one of those things where you can talk, tolling's the wrapper, but really the pain point we're solving is solving problems that everyday people experience in transportation. And so that's the easy way to do it. And then how you, as a potential candidate coming on into, an event, can learn about all the different little facets. And so I think I love your idea and your mission here of getting that exposure. The mentorship program is phenomenal. I'm really excited to learn more about that. And so I'm kind of curious, though, your personal perspective, and it's been great talking to you about this so far, but when you talk about your personal perspective, you say you learned a lot, you're still learning, it sounds like, just like myself. What is it that one of the most surprising lessons you've learned? And I would say being in the industry, followed by being president.
That's a good question.
Yeah, there you go. I was just going to throw those at you.
Oh man, that's a tough one. The most surprising thing about being in the industry and then being president. So I think I'll start with the industry, and it goes back to what I said earlier, uh, the connectedness
Mm,
uh, that everyone has
yeah,
in this industry was a surprise to me,
yeah.
because it wasn't something that I came from, right? I,
Right.
I worked in the legal profession, and I worked in politics, and so there's connections, but in different ways,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Well
Um,
said.
but the connectedness and really kind of just the familial nature of the industry,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I think that also lends itself to the presidency as well.
Okay.
I think, uh, I feel when I have conversations with people,
Yeah.
that people want me to succeed,
Yes.
right? They want uh they want there to be success, because my success is the success of the industry,
Yeah.
right? And you don't get that everywhere.
No.
You don't get that. You don't get that type of support um, in every industry.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's extremely important about the tolling industry and IBTTA, and the past presidents, and you know the amount of support that I've received
Right.
has been tremendous.
That's phenomenal. As we start to wrap up, and thank you for that, because I'm sorry, I'm going to digress a little bit, but I think that, people don't realize, so especially if you're new to tolling and you're learning. I remember going to my first conference, as you mentioned yours. It's relatively a small conference. Typically, it's anywhere from 1,000 to maybe 2,000 on the high end. I mean, versus some industries are tens of thousands. But it's a smaller group, but very closely knit. And I think what you've said here is you reaffirmed that everybody's rooting for everybody because of the greater goal. But I think it's part of the success is the intimate size. Even though we want it to grow, right? We want it to be a bigger organization. I think some of the value's been we all work so closely together. But that also means there's plenty of room for other people to join. And just because we work together doesn't mean we want to see you viewers, tuning and come talking to us and getting tied in. So this kind of transitions to me to as you talk to, you look back on your experience and you're talking, like, for example, the YPC, what would be some career advice you'd give a young professional? And young professional, let's be really clear, doesn't necessarily mean your age. Okay. Age is just a number, but the young professional, again, as it denotes in the name, is a young professional in this. What would you give them advice? What would your advice be?
I think my favorite piece of advice that I love to give my mentees and younger people is that you belong in every room.
Oh, wow.
You belong in every single room. You belong in every single table. You belong there,
Fantastic.
right? And so we talked about IBTTA and it's small, right? And
Yeah.
it's kind of intimate, but it can also be very insular, right?
Yeah.
If you're new and somebody,
Sure.
you're coming for the first time and you see all these people and, they're all in their corner and they're talking to their people and they're talking, right? And so I've never had an issue. I've never had an issue walking up to somebody and just saying hello,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? But I
I
know
didn't
that's
think that
not.
about you, by the way. I wouldn't have thought that ever.
And I think about the things that
Right.
I did when I was much younger and new in my career. And I was telling my husband this. I laughed because I was visiting. I'll never forget this. I was visiting Chicago, and I had just finished undergraduate,
Mm.
and I just so happened to know. I saw it somewhere. I don't even know where I saw it. This woman, she was a judge, and she had gone to my undergraduate institution. So I just called her.
Yeah.
Like I literally picked up the phone and I called her. I didn't know her from anybody else. I just knew she went to Hampton University
Right.
and I went to Hampton University and I'm sure she's going to talk to me because she will.
Yeah.
And she did, right? Now that was pretty bold. Like I think back on that now and I'm like, that was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Like, but I've always kind of had that internal, like, I'm not afraid,
Yeah.
the worst somebody could say is no.
Right.
Right. And
Exactly.
so I want younger people to understand, like, it's okay. It's okay. And it's okay if somebody says no.
Sure.
It's okay if you ask to sit in the room and they say no to you. You know what? They might not say no the next time,
Right.
right? Or you might ask somebody else
Yeah.
and they may say yes. And so, but the sense of understanding that you belong somewhere is really important to me.
Yeah.
Understanding that you have the skills,
Hmm.
like everything you do, you're acquiring skills,
Right.
right? And so you may not have all of the skills that you think that you may want for a particular
Right.
position or whatever it may be, but you do have skills, right?
Absolutely.
And so, you have skills, you have capabilities.
Yeah.
You may not have the experience always,
Right.
but you gain that experience by sitting in the room or
Yeah.
by picking up the phone and saying, hey, can I talk to you, or walking up to somebody at the conference and saying, hey, listen, I know you're the CEO of the Pennsylvania Turnpike, and
Right.
I live in Pennsylvania, and I'd love to talk to you about what it is you do every day.
Yeah.
I got a message the other day on LinkedIn from a young man who said, I saw you have a legal background. I saw you transitioned out of that. I'd love to talk to you.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. See, they
Where are you?
asked, and
You're up the street.
yeah, there you
You're
go.
not even a block away. It's not
Yeah.
a problem. We can sit, we can talk. I can make the time for that,
Yeah.
right? But if you don't ask, you have not because you ask not.
Yeah. That, see, another great one right there. I mean, honestly, and wow, I want you to say that earlier on. You belong in every room. That's your
You
message.
belong in every room.
That's phenomenal. And lastly, if you ask, say it again, you ask not,
You have not because you ask not.
you have not because you've asked not. See, that's extremely powerful. And yes, I could go out and talk to people in a room sometimes, but I can get intimidated. But I think for the young professionals, those were have to be some of the best bits of advice I've received through the show. So thank you so much for that, because I think a lot of people need to know that. And hopefully that'll, give them the confidence they need to stand up and figure it out.
I hope so.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, as we kind of, wrap here, I just want to ask you like two quick questions here. Because one you've already answered.
It's a lightning round.
Yeah, lightning round, real quick. No, I guess let's start off with this one here. What excites you most about the future of the tolling industry? Would you say it's the people mission, or is there something else?
I think it's innovation.
Okay, innovation. All right, very good. And then let's see, here's the next thing. As you look at your term at IBTTA, what do you hope people will say you changed because of your leadership?
I hope that people will say that they felt seen and they felt heard. And I hope that people will say that we became more collaborative.
That's great.
And we are a global association, and so I think collaboration is to our benefit, right? It's to all of ours benefit.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for all this great experience and, quite honestly, candid, just feedback on your career and where the industry is. It's been a wonderful thing to have you on the show. And I hope all of our viewers here that you're watching, that you've enjoyed listening to Joi Taylor Dean and all her experiences, both at RMTA and IBTTA. Thank you very much for joining. And until next time, this is Toll Talk, and we'll see you out there.